It is just the most impressive and nostalgic track that we have around it.
Long, quick, wet. It's massively, massively fast.
So we like being on the edge. If you make a mistake, you're going to hurt yourself.
Go through Eau Rouge flat out. It's always that challenge whether or not you can do that. I can't wait to get on it.
And thanks so much for pressing red. There's still a lot to talk about. It was great to have all that time though on BBC One to chat to the masses, and we're glad that you've pressed red to join us. Don't forget, you can tweet me at Jake Humphrey. F1 is Twitter, or you can email f1@bbc.co.uk. Now, if I hadn't tapped you with my iPad, you'd probably still be answering my last question, wouldn't you?
Well, we won't go into all of that right now, because I'm sure the people on Red Button don't want to hear about my excuses and why you keep prodding me in the middle of this show.
They might want to know why you keep prodding them. You can explain.
It's because when we are on live television, we have to come off air to the second, and I asked David and Eddie a question. They're thinking a nice short answer each, and Eddie was still talking as Norma, our wonderful PA, was going 3, and I'm going, shut up, we've got to get off air.
He's full of these old excuses. He should have been a racing driver, because he has all those excuses in abundance.
Of course, they were excuses. Should we go for a little bit of a walk? Because we've been standing here to make sure we get all the drivers, just to kind of explain the way it works here geographically.
Above a drain, I'll mention. The smell has been terrible.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. We did choose a bad place to stand.
I kept looking at Eddie.
But the reason why we're standing here, David, if you take a look at the stairs there, you can see the upper paddock. And so all the drivers, and you can see Mark Webber now coming down.
Should we try and grab him?
Yeah, I think we should. Basically, the drivers have to come down those steps to make sure that they get to their motorhomes, and it's a great strategic place for us to stand to kind of catch them in our BBC lair. So let's go and grab him before 1 million people arrive around Mark Webber, and see if we can grab him just for a quick second. I'm sure he'll speak to us. He's always affable, particularly when he's had a great result. And it was a brilliant result today, and we can... Mark, would you mind having us 1 minute? I know you've got a lot to do. I know you have to talk to the media a lot after a race, but...
Whatever.
You don't mind, do you?
Belated happy birthday, by the way.
Obviously not.
Yeah, belated happy birthday. Congratulations on a new contract. A good race today. If ever there's a time to speak to us, now is it, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm a bit fresh, actually. I just want to get some warm, but anyway, we'll have a chat. What do you want to chat about?
Oh, the race? Should we do that?
Should we talk about the start? What happened?
Yeah, didn't do one today.
Yeah.
Clutch lever out and anti-stall, bang. So, yeah, there it is. Beautiful. And I think Seb was pretty critical. I think we had way too much grip, mate. The clutch was... I think Seb was very critical as well. Apparently, he was very low on RPM, and then we could see all the youngsters getting into each other, which was great to see. And then, yeah, I just come back from there. But, yeah, it was an enjoyable race from then on, obviously. You know, we're very worried about the tyres, particularly in Eau Rouge here, how they might go during the race, but in the end, not too bad.
I tell you what, actually, I got to shake your hand. That pass on Fernando, when I was in the commentary box, I stood back because high definition, I thought you were going to come through the television. That was commitment.
We're now riding on board with you. Just talk us through what's going through your mind at this point, if anything.
Yeah, it was quite tight at the bottom. Obviously, the move is done in the middle of Eau Rouge, but both of us were very tight on the way in, and so I've been told on the radio that Fernando is now coming out of the pit exit, and I'm on the curves here now. Fernando's obviously on his curves as well, and yeah, here we go. We got to our DC saying I've got to get brave, and yeah, it was... Yes, he was touching me somewhere else there, but it was a difficult move to pull off, and obviously someone that you've got to have a lot of trust in, like Fernando. I do.
Okay, happy with the result, though, as the race kind of came to you towards the end there, didn't it?
It did. I think it's one of our best 1-2s we've ever had, to be honest, as a team. Off the back of the last few races, been a little bit more difficult here and there. We haven't had 1-2 in a while. The tyres were very, very challenging today, and yes, very rewarding. Of course, at the moment, a bit frustrated, but you know, when you wake up tomorrow morning, it's a very rewarding place to drive at, and I was happy with how I drove after that. Okay, well, we have to let you go, so thank you very much, and congratulations on the new contract. Good drive today. We'll see you in Monza. Thanks a lot, Mark. Good lad. And here is his team principal, Christian Horner. So perhaps we should get Christian to dive in and chat to us as well. Eddie, you go wherever you like. There's no rules on the F1 forum, which is quite nice. Well done, Mark and Sebastian. Two very different races. You know, Mark had an issue there at the very start, and then he worked his way through the field, whereas Sebastian did what he likes to do, and sort of a bit of run and hide and just be totally consistent and stay out the front. You must be really happy.
Yeah, I think for us, from a team performance point of view, this weekend has been one of the strongest weekends that we've ever had, to be honest with you. After the difficulties of yesterday in qualifying with the weather, the tyre issues sort of overnight, and concerns at the start of the race, and the way the whole race panned out, I think, you know, for us it was a a phenomenal weekend. So. And quite a tricky, and I've got nearly as many grey hairs as Eddie now.
Not quite.
The emotion at the end, when you were on the pit wall, it looked like Adrian was sort of wiping away a tear. Was that all because of the tough decisions that were needed before this race, and you know, with the tyre issues and the uncertainty?
Well, there were some big decisions that needed to be made before the beginning of the race, and obviously Adrian takes the safety aspect massively seriously, and he was concerned this morning about the safety of those tyres going into the race. But after sitting down, spending time with the Pirelli, engineers and technical team, they gave us more reassurance, more confidence. But ultimately, we had a choice either to start from the back of the grid or take the start on those tyres, and we felt with the information that we had, it was safe to start the race. But that's why we were quite conservative in the first stint, stopping the guys pretty early.
Christian, we know in the past you've made the driver stay in station. At what stage were you going to do that today?
We didn't today. We could see we're under pressure behind from...
You didn't need to, but we were going to do it.
We weren't. Of course we weren't, Eddie. But we had a situation where obviously Jensen was pushing hard. He was on an option tyre. He was very quick at that stage of the race. Mark hunted down Fernando, passed him relatively easily. Easier than his first move on the outside into Eau Rouge, and we could see that Jensen was still very quick, so we just let the guys push all the way to the end of the race.
So you weren't going to do anything?
There was no need to even talk about doing anything today. It was total faith in both of them.
Good.
There's been times over the past 2.5 seasons that you guys have really dominated races, dominated weekends and dominated the sport. How much satisfaction do you get from the fact that McLaren and Ferrari are falling over themselves to catch up with you, and when they have the pace, you're still able to pull out race wins?
I think, you must never underestimate, those teams. They're great teams with great people in them and huge histories. And we're still a relatively young team. So for everything to come together as it has this weekend, I think demonstrates the team and teamwork with the drivers, with the whole group, not just here, but back in Milton Keynes, the performance of the car, operationally, the pit stops, the strategy, at its very best. And, that's what we strive for. That's what we push for. And that's what we'll be trying to repeat in the remaining 7 races. But we take absolutely nothing for granted.
Of course not, although the fact that you're almost there. Niki Lauda just told us the title's over, you've won it already, so you may as well go and hang out on the beach until November.
Well, 7 races to go, still a lot of points,
of course
on the board. So, we take absolutely nothing for granted yet.
OK, great. Thanks very much, Christian. And would you mind, as you exit, passing your microphone to Jarno Trulli? Is that OK?
Problem.
Thank you very much, because, of course, Red Bull used the Renault engines, and so did... Yes?
I was just going to ask Christian...
I love the way, by the way, Eddie taps me with his microphone live on air. People at home do hear the sort of... every time you do it.
I just wanted to know, first of all, it was the KERS problem on the start, and now it's the anti-stall. It's their only weak point, isn't it? The start of the race.
Yeah, sure. We'll talk about that in depth in a moment. But first, hello, Jarno. Jarno Trulli's popped down to join us. Congratulations today. Considering the start that you had, where you had a little bit of a coming together, that was a strong race weekend from you.
Yeah, I think a great effort from all the team. Actually, it was a nice race to do for me and for both the mechanics and the team, because we had to recover from the back. There was an unfortunate accident the first corner, and both cars were involved, so me and Nike had to make our ground from the back of the field. But we were quicker than the cars in the front, and actually we were also quite competitive today.
You made a good getaway here on the run down to the source. Maybe just talk us through what's happening here.
Well, basically there was an accident. As you can see, there was an accident on the outside line, so I had to turn in, and Nike unfortunately couldn't avoid me. There's a typical race accident, and it's a shame that both cars were involved.
Was it more difficult here because you haven't had a lot of dry running, hardly any dry running, and certainly none with full tanks? You think people were caught out in the first corner?
No, not really. I think this is a typical first corner accident, and it can happen. As I say, we have gone through it so many times. So, we just made the best out of it. We finished 14 and 15, still a good result for the team.
Yeah, no, I heard a story that this new power steering that you liked, you couldn't run it for here. The loads are too high. Is that a true story? Yeah,
it's true. Unfortunately, I had to run with the old one, the old spec, which is actually not the one I like. But, well, I managed to get away pretty well. But still, the V2, the one I tested in Hungary, which was working well here, was saturating. So I tested it on Friday, but I had to remove it then.
OK. Welcome to the forum, by the way.
Yeah, hello.
Nice to have you here.
Yeah, no, the reliability at your team is probably when you look at the other teams around you, when you've got Virgin and you've got HRT, collectively you've got more DNFs than they have combined. I'm just wondering, is that down to the drivers, still areas in the car that need knuckling down and actually getting the car more solid? And
I think we are pushing really hard in order to improve not only the reliability, but especially the performance. It's true that maybe our rivals are slightly more reliable if you look at the DNF, but we are much quicker, much stronger. So what we are doing, we are pushing forward the teams and everybody in order to get a better result and better performance. So these things happen, you know.
And have you discussed how keen you are to carry on pushing for points this year, or is all the focus now in that team on looking at the races that you've got in 2012 and making sure you start next year with a car capable of points?
I think at the moment the team is already focusing on the 2012 car, which is very important. But nevertheless, we know that we need to finish 10th in the championship, and still our aim is to score a point. And you've seen that it can happen. There are some races and some circumstances where we can be competitive and we can actually try to finish in the top 10. It's not going to be easy, but still we have to try and we have to give our best until the last race.
Okay, well, you gave your best today, a 14th and 15th placed finish, and you'll be looking for that 10th place in the championship, and it's looking like it's going to be yours. So well done today. Nice to chat to you. Thank you. We'll let you escape off to your debriefs and various other things. Thanks a lot, Jarno. Always good to chat to you. And Martin, welcome to the forum. What delayed you?
I was making a cup of tea at Red Bull and I got talking to Jonathan Wheatley, the team manager, saying, oh, come on, the tyres weren't, you know, we didn't see anything blow up. And they were really seriously concerned that they were going to lose a tyre. And something that Christian said earlier on about Adrian's very sensitive to safety just jogged my mind, of course, that it was an Adrian Newey car that Ayrton Senna died in, and that plays heavily on, not that it was Adrian's fault, of course, but Adrian does take safety, and you have to around here, don't you? And you really have to, you can't send the cars into Eau Rouge if you think the front tyres are going to blow up, because I was looking at the tyres up there, they put black tape where the blisters were. I don't know if you had a chance to have a look at that while I was wandering down. So Pirelli are sensitive to anybody taking images of the tyres. Okay. They've just tank taped them around. But so it clearly was a serious issue, even though we didn't see it materialise in a car flying off the track, thankfully.
I think the big difficulty for engineers like Adrian or any of the technical staff of the teams is when you design the car and you have a technical issue with a front wing or a suspension part, you can actually trace back what was the design philosophy, what's the layup, have you missed something in the design phase. But when it's a tyre, you don't design that tyre. You obviously have tyre models to tell you how that's going to move aerodynamically, when it's compressed and all those sorts of things, but you don't actually know the construction and integrity. So, you know, as Christian mentioned, they had some meetings with Pirelli this morning, and it was through those meetings that they built up the confidence that the tyre construction would be safe, even if the actual surface of the tyre was going to delaminate slightly.
And I think they did have some delamination issues in testing as well. When they lost the primary sort of rubber on the surface, I think it did quite quickly turn into something more serious.
Okay, well, let's just quickly hear from Adrian Newey, if we can, Eddie, because I believe that he's live with Ted right now. So let's get Adrian's thoughts on this issue. Ted.
Hello, Jake. Yes, we're up in the upper paddock. Where are you? Down the lower paddock. Very nice down there. Anyway,
down the lower paddock, yes.
We're now in the with lots of Pirelli tyres in the background. And let's talk about the Pirelli tyres. First of all, Adrian, what was the pattern of the morning? How concerned were you?
Very concerned. Basically what happened was that around 5 o'clock yesterday evening, then Pirelli came to us and said that having looked at our tyres from qualifying, then they were very concerned about the safety of the tyres, that they could be suffering structural damage in the junction between the sidewall and the tread, and felt that failure of the tyre could be imminent on both cars.
That's almost an Indy 05 situation, structural failure, isn't it?
Very much so. So it's very concerning. We then entered into a lot of debate with Pirelli as to what we should do. They recommended that higher front pressure would make the tyre safer, as would reduce camber. Without permission from the FIA, then reducing the front camber would be in breach of part Fermo regulations, and therefore would have had to start from the pit lane. Equally, the FIA weren't willing to consider our tyres damaged, and therefore weren't willing to allow us to start on a different set from what we qualified on.
So this was... Sorry, go on. Sorry, go on.
So our choice really was do what we could to make the tyre safer, which was go to a much higher front pressure, particularly on that first set that potentially were damaged after qualifying. Not using DRS helps because the damage is a function of speed and load. And with DRS, of course, similar load at the front. It's only the rear wing that loses load, but you're going a lot faster. So we did some internal calculations combined with the results that Pirelli gave us for how much increase in front pressure would help the life. And then really, to be perfectly honest, it wasn't a very comfortable position to be in, but given the lack of DRS and the extra front pressure and the life expectancy that would give from what Pirelli told us, we took the view that Mark's tyres would probably be safe to around lap 2 or 3, and Sebastian's tyres around lap 5. So that was the reason for our very early stops.
Okay, and just briefly in one word, that's how you got round it, and that's how it worked, and that's how you got a 1-2?
Yes, it is. I mean, I have to say, it's one of the scariest races I've been involved in ever. It's heart in the mouth stuff, because obviously first and foremost our duty of care is to the driver's safety, and you're trying to make that call of making sure that the car is safe whilst not excessively handicapping ourselves from a performance point of view. So it's quite a difficult, well, I found it quite a difficult judgment to make. I was, frankly, at the end of the race, I was just very relieved that both our drivers were safe.
Okay, Adrian, thank you very much. If you can stay cool on the pit wall, you can stay cool when there's a wasp threatening your ear. So thanks very much for joining us. Back to you, Jake.
Oh, very good. Thanks, Ted. There's been wasps everywhere this weekend. There's been an invasion of them. Interesting to hear Adrian Newey's comments there. Can you understand, first of all, Eddie, when they went to the FIA to say that we need to change something on our car here, the other team's saying, hold on, you set your car up, it's not worked for you, why should we now be penalised for you to put fresh tyres on that car? You can understand that point of view and why the FIA didn't let them change tyres?
I have a strong opinion on this. They qualified on the conditions and the setup that they had. It was their choice. If they wanted all of the tyres, from a safety point of view, all taken away and just use the harder tyre, then I could understand that would be a basis for safety and no question there. However, what they wanted was new tyres to replace the ones that they'd blistered. Well, that was never going to happen in my view, and it would have been quite wrong. So, I'm sorry, in certain cases, Adrian, you can't have both sides. If you're going to get rid of the tyres that were blistered, then all of the tyres of that particular manufacturing have to be withdrawn.
And as drivers, how much would you not like to hear a member of your team come and say to you at the end of the race, oh, I'm glad to see you two? It's not necessarily the kind of thing you want to hear when you've just climbed out of a Grand Prix car after an hour and a half of racing, is it?
Yeah, but the situation is that all of the difficult conversations are actually taking place before the Grand Prix. When you're in the Grand Prix car, you're never considering a tyre deflating, a wing breaking, any of those sorts of things. All you're thinking about is not making a mistake, driving as fast as you possibly can. You know, obviously there was a frustration within the team and other teams because they were all blistering the tyres out there at the front. But you have to trust in your engineers at the end of the day. That would be my point of view.
When you step over the side of a Formula 1 car, it's a living prototype. There's only 5 or 6 made every year. They're constantly being evolved, and you put total blind faith in the designers and the engineers and your mechanics that the car's not going to throw you in the wall at the first opportunity and kill you. And so you do have to trust them on that. But it is concerning them when they come to you. You have to take them seriously when they say, look, we've got to protect these front tyres. I've seen a lot worse on the surface of a tyre, I have to say, during a Grand Prix. But clearly they were concerned about what was going on underneath the surface.
Yeah. Okay. I have to say, though, I was so impressed by Sebastian Vettel coming on the radio early on. We talk about spare capacity for the drivers. He said, yes, my tyres are blistering, but I think they've tailed off now. That, you know, it's not getting any worse, which for someone like me who can barely drive to the shops without taking off the rear wing is difficult. Right, let's talk about one of the big incidents then in the race, an incident that did lead to a bit of crumpled car on the floor, and this is Lewis Hamilton versus Kamui Kobayashi. Martin, we've heard from David, we heard from you in commentary, we've spoken to Niki Lauda, who was very clear that this was partly Lewis's issue. What he said Lewis did there was move across when he shouldn't have done. If he'd have stayed going exactly straight, he would have been fine. Do you think there's driver input on that steering wheel from Lewis?
I think that Lewis moved to the middle of the track because he clearly knew Kobayashi was coming back at him. So why he then didn't recognise, you know, he should have checked where he was. I think there's also, and something David picked up in commentary, Kobayashi starts to turn into the corner as well. So I think they kind of met in the middle. And you know, if I'm hearing 50-50 blame, I'm kind of going along with that. Kobayashi should have probably got out of the way because it was a clear pass, but it was for position. He's entitled to fight his corner, but where on earth was he going with that fight? But I think Lewis was just a bit too casual. You know, single-seaters only have one driver in them, and when they crash, you start looking with the driver who's in the car, and that's my basic mentality on these things. And I think Lewis just completely failed to notice just how far Kobayashi had come alongside him. It's almost sort of flippant with it, and Kobayashi was taking a fight to him that just wasn't really ever a fight.
And Pastor Maldonado actually said to us on BBC One live before we came onto the forum that he thought that what Lewis did in the race was similar to what Lewis had done during qualifying. That's an interesting point of view.
And nonsense.
Well, absolutely. Given that I don't know how he had much chance to watch it, because obviously he doesn't have high-definition BBC coverage during the Grand Prix when he was picking up his 10th place finish. So, but anyway, he's entitled obviously to give his opinion on that. But I think actually Pastor softened his position from his first statement to you to when he actually answered my part of the question. You know, he kind of accepted it was a bit of two guys fighting, getting angry with each other, which is very different to what the press release was saying yesterday. But I understand that. When you get involved in those incidents, you have to try and take a defensive position, get through the stewards, and then you might soften your view afterwards.
I think it's very interesting. You know, wily old fox like Niki Lauda, who's been through the hoop many times, we know what kind of accidents he's had. And he was very clear. He has been critical of Lewis in the past, but he started the conversation by saying how brilliant and how fast he is. Why does Lewis put himself in this position that could cause an accident that he didn't need to have?
OK, I think none of us would disagree with the fact that Lewis is great to watch, but maybe that needs thinking about. Right, let's talk about the man who kept himself out of trouble all weekend. In fact, he stayed out of trouble all season. He only seems to be off the tarmac on Fridays, doesn't he? And even then, only a couple of times all year. Let's hear from Sebastian Vettel.
Well, Sebastian, congratulations. A great drive. Is your happiness mixed with a little bit of relief now that you're back at the top?
Well, I mean, I'm very happy for sure. So I think it was a very good race for us. Obviously not easy because regarding the tires, quite difficult to manage, and in the beginning of the race it was more research and science rather than racing. I mean, we sacrificed a lot stopping very early, but we had a good feeling, and then I came in again when the safety car came out just to really have another look on the tires, how they are. I can judge a bit from the inside, but you know, when you do 300 or more, then you see the tires always spinning rather than stopped, and you can't really take the time to have a look. So it was crucial to come back in and have a closer look, and we knew that from then onwards we only have one set of soft tires left, and yeah, the soft tire was quicker, but I think, you know, I know the outcome now, so I'm very happy, and obviously it's a big relief after all the discussions we really had straight after qualifying and this morning before going into the race. So I'm very happy.
And Adrian and Christian both looked a little bit emotional. Is that because of the fear of what might happen with the blistering tyres, or is it just because it's another Red Bull 1-2?
No, I mean, definitely it wasn't easy, you know. It was disturbing our rhythm, because usually you know what you do when you arrive on Sunday morning. Today it was different because we arrived and had a lot of discussions straight away, so that doesn't make it easy, and it's hard to, you know, keep the focus. So in the beginning, and the last thing we discussed before the race, I remember, was, you know, that today the main priority is to finish the race and not even thinking about where. So that's why, you know, I'm really happy with the result we had. It couldn't be any better. The car was fantastic. So from start to finish, and you know, with more laps we got more of an idea about the tires and felt more and more confident to then push when it was necessary.
And he pushed very well all afternoon as Eddie Jordan slowly returns to the television. Let's run through some very quick tweets. Plenty of messages coming in, so relatively short answers would be great. Maxi Turbo says, will David storm into Michael Schumacher's garage and congratulate him on today's performance, just like in Spa all those years ago?
Well, I don't think he'll be in the garage anymore. He'll be in the debrief with the engineers. But yeah, I might storm in there and say well done. OK, Martin, should Kamui Kobayashi have had a penalty for the contact with Lewis Hamilton is a question that loads of people are asking.
Well, the stewards have looked at it and looked at the different camera angles, so they have so much more data. I'm learning more and more, and I want to do a feature on this, actually, because they have GPS, they compare previous laps and lines that were taken and all sorts of information that we don't have, and they chose not to take it any further. And the referee's always right, isn't he?
Yeah. Taff 73.
I think it's his decision is the final decision.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Taff 73, good one for you, Eddie. Do you think that after Paul de Rest, who looked great in the first couple of races, the rookies all look at a similar level after a few races?
I'd have to say, generally, the rookies have actually impressed me this year, all of them. And Paul in particular. I think he's emerged in this team as a very strong candidate. We heard yesterday from Vijay Mallya saying how important he was to the team, and I am absolutely impressed with him, yeah.
OK, and AZ76L has sent me a message to say, we've heard about your driver of the day, moment of the day. You've each got about 5 seconds to give me your moment of the day on the weekend.
Mark Webber passing Fernando Alonso around the outside of Eau Rouge.
Yep.
Awesome.
That's taken, you can't have that one.
Well, then in that case, then it would be the incident with Lewis, because it was just such a bizarre incident that cost him dearly.
And for me, the numerous overtakes by Jenson Button, for me, I still can't believe we've seen the emergence from Jenson.
Absolutely, and for me, David Coulthard wearing a Michael Schumacher fan T-shirt. I think you look very fetching. I'm not sure why you've taken it off, but there you go. Thank you all very much for hanging out with us on the F1 Forum. Thank you very much for pressing red. The four of us have loved hanging out with you, and we want to do exactly the same thing in Monza in a couple of weeks' time. So just check your diary, make sure you're free, and we'll see you in Italy. So goodbye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Your love pours down on me, surround me like a waterfall. And there's no stopping us right now. I feel so close to you right now. Stopping us right now.
Next time on Formula One, Round 13, Italy.